I think I've hit my limit. I've been trying to complete a lethal mission for about a week now, and every time I think I'm going to do it, I just get completely overwhelmed. On my latest run, I was doing Vox Libertas, playing with bots, and I had one more altar to destroy when 2 Chaos Sorcerers and 2 Terminators spawned. On lethal? That had to be, you had to have missed a Terminator or a Chaos spawn, and then basically they just spawned another one. That is how this happens on lethal. And also this person said they're playing with bots. they're trying to solo one of the hardest operations. The reason why Vox Libertas is one of the hardest operations is because on that last half you get chaos, and they do not care about how much chaos they spawn. You get like a really, like you get a short moment of fighting chaos. Like, it's only half the operation, right? But it's very densely populated. So operation number 3, especially on lethal, was actually one of the tougher operations. It was harder than Fall of Atreus for me for whatever reason. I don't get it. I don't get why. But yeah, 2 Chaos Sorcerers and 2 Terminators. They've had to have missed 1 Extremist spawn, or you know, like how it spawns in 2 Extremists. They've had to have missed 1 of them, and then just, you know, they probably just hanged out, and then another group of Extremists spawned in. That's how this happens, right? I don't think you can just get 2 Chaos Sorcerers and 2 Terminators out of nowhere on lethal. Sitting on a slither of health, I managed to put one of the Terminators into execute mode, only for the Bulwark bot to immediately steal the kill, and I dropped immediately. Wait, dude, what? Oh, maybe if it's in execute mode, maybe the Bulwark threw a grenade? The Bulwark wouldn't have did the execute. The Bulwark would, yeah, the only way they could really steal that kill is if they threw a grenade, or maybe for whatever reason the bot did a power whirl. It's just so frustrating that I wasted an hour only to get absolutely nothing, and I see so many posts of people completing their absolute runs and claiming the game is too easy. It's just disheartening knowing that I'm just not good enough. There's no real point to this post other than to say I think I'm done, the game has defeated me. Alright, so there's definitely a few things of note here. This dude is playing lethal on solo, and he's trying to compare himself to people who are completing their absolute runs, who are playing with likely good teammates. This is a sad post, I gotta be honest. This person kind of makes the game look harder than it is, but at the same time he is doing Vox Libertas solo lethal. Like, just for clarification, that's not like anyone's first operation to go into when it comes to trying to solo an operation. This person should try to, I wonder how many other lethal runs they're able to complete, because they should go for, they should go for like Inferno, or even Decapitation's a good one to kind of get used to the difficulty. Ballistic Engine is also, these are Tyranid missions, by the way. I'm just pointing these out because these are missions you would want to start your lethal runs with if you're doing solo. I do want to go back to solo lethal one day, but I think solo absolute might be a tad bit more interesting, but it could be very crazy. Interesting. So I guess this is all to point out to say if this game is really too hard for most players, that would be unfortunate. There are moments in absolute and lethal where you find teammates who just, they're just not used to it yet. They need to play ruthless more often. So many people jump from substantial right into lethal, and that's just that's probably the worst way to approach difficulty in this game. It's a shame. I hope this guy sees this video, because it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you weren't able to solo lethal essentially on a chaos mission. That's pretty tough. The fact that they were even able to get to the end makes me believe that they don't realize how much better they got at the game after this operation. Even though they said they don't think they gained anything, they probably still leveled up their weapons unless they're fully upgraded. But still, getting through operation number 3 solo on lethal, getting to the very end of it. It sounds like they only had 1 or 2 altars left, and they died because a Bulwark bot took their kill, which they would have healed from. That's still really good. This guy thinks the game's probably on is this guy probably thinks the game's too tough for them. But I just want to point out that you are playing on lethal with bots, so you're the only one who's able to really kill things, despite the discrepancy there of the bulwark stealing the kill. That's a outlier. That normally doesn't happen, especially with bots. And the thing is, you can't compare yourself. You can't compare yourself to people who are playing Absolute, because a lot of people who went into Absolute already had a good strategy for lethal, so they just brought that same strategy over to Absolute, and then you just have to play it a little bit better because of the extra extremists. It's not a huge difficulty jump, so anything you have that was working in lethal is going to work in Absolute. That also leads me to say that this person is probably better than most people who play Absolute. Okay, nah. Actually, most of the people I've run with in Absolute are really good. There's been less. I feel like I've had less bad teammates in Absolute than lethal. In lethal, there's definitely a lot of players who are going to get used, or who are who are trying to get used to lethal. So there are definitely going to be some players who are not ready for it yet. But hey, it just takes practice, and you will definitely figure this out. But I've noticed myself getting a lot better at the game when I went for my Lethal Reliquary runs. By the end of Lethal Reliquary, I had to get so much better at the game. Like, I could barely drop a banner to save my life before I started Lethal Reliquary. And, now I'm dropping banners to teammates who aren't even near the execution just to heal them from the Terminus. I've had that before. That was rough. From the Terminus execution that my other teammate is doing, who I've already full healed. But regardless. Yeah, I got a lot better at the game. I got a lot better at the game through my Lethal Reliquary journeys. So everyone has that operation. Everyone has that operation in Lethal or Absolute where it's like, wow, for whatever reason, this operation's taking me like 10 or, however many tries. And all those tries, you are getting a little bit better at the game as it goes on. You just don't really notice it until you, basically, like this player, for example, I bet you they notice how much better they are at the game if they queued up the same operation, but with teammates and in lethal. They probably wouldn't even sweat as much as they are sweating in this post. Yeah, I do think this game can be a little bit difficult for a lot of players, for sure, but I still think it's within the realm of, improvement that you can definitely get better at the game. It's obviously, just practice and you will improve at the game. And basically the game starts off really hard, especially if you don't have any upgrades or anything. And the more you get better, the more upgrades you get. There are going to be difficulty spikes, and then you just have to adjust to those difficulty spikes. Does it say what class he was running? He's not using Bulwark, so that's pretty crazy on its own. 2 Chaos spawned, Slither of Health. Yeah, no, I can't really see what class he was using, but he's not using Bulwark, so he's already kind of, like, Bulwark's the best class for solo lethal at the moment because of Invigorating Icon, or at least that's pretty much how I would see it. Interesting. Yeah, this person thinks the game's too hard for him, but in reality, he's actually getting a lot better at the game, and he's probably better than, a bulk of the players on lethal. He's probably better than the average lethal player, 100%. And then in Absolute, he just needs to, basically just, play with good teammates, and he should be fine. Anyone who can get this far into a solo lethal run is going to be ready for Absolute, at least with good teammates. Brother, do not lose faith. There are plenty of us here willing to lend a hand. Trying to do the higher difficulties with bots make it so much harder. I'd rather do nothing but Obelisk on Absolute with a full squad than even do a Ruthless mission entirely solo. Oh yeah, this is a fair scale. For one, Obelisk on Absolute is super fun. If you like fighting Terminators, Obelisk is the way to go. Obelisk is actually one of my favorite operations. It's probably my favorite Chaos operation, I would say, next to Fall of Atreus. Fall of Atreus is pretty cool, but I like the Tomb and I like the Chalice. I like the unique properties of Obelisk, especially, you know, moving the islands and stuff, even though it can get frustrating with players who don't know what they're doing. Brother, do not lose faith. Yes, I agree with this. This person doesn't realize how much better they got at the game from running solo lethal. And I wouldn't say absolute Obelisk is easier than solo Ruthless. Yeah, I wouldn't say that. That's probably not correct, or at least not 100% accurate. But still, playing solo in any difficulty is definitely going to get you better at the game, 100%. But yeah, Obelisk on Absolute is actually pretty tough. It's not like the toughest mission. It's not like the toughest Chaos mission, but it is very fun, and it honestly can be tough if you know, you guys are whiffing your shots in the last part of that. You know, the sorcerer battle. Battle Brother! Admitting you have room to improve is the first step. You've hit a wall, and you must now break it. First, what's your main class? What loadouts do you use? What situations you find yourself struggling in? All these questions are very good questions, but unfortunately, the original poster did not answer this. The only comment so far I've seen the original poster answer was somebody who said, well, yeah, you're running with bots. You know, it's easier with other teammates. And then he asked, well, then why did they put bots in the game? I don't know. But regardless, the person isn't aware of how much better they are at the game just from running those few solo lethal operations. Like he's probably a lot better than he thinks he is. Even though, you know, obviously lethal solo is difficult. I think it's a really good point where it's like, okay, I'm not too sure how good I am at the game. Let's just jump into solo lethal and see how far I can get. Anyone who can get to the end of any operation on solo lethal is better than most other lethal players who are not playing solo. You just don't understand how much better you get from dealing with all that chaos alone. The bots can help you up, obviously. The bots can res you, but that only happens for so much because of Mortal Wound, you know? And then, not to mention, the bots aren't able to really kill anything, so you are fighting more than you would be fighting if you had other teammates, like real teammates. So, yeah, essentially, you're getting a crash course in how to survive higher difficulties, and it's probably the most intense way to get better at the game is solo lethal, 100%. Same thing, I really wanted the lethal helmet and started doing chaos missions. I'm actually a decent Bulwark and Vanguard and could do absolute solo on any Tyranid mission, so I thought lethal would be okay. Died 8 times in one gaming session with real teammates? That helmet is not worth getting, don't care, fight me. Alright. First of all, no, the Survivor helmet is very, very much worth it. It's probably one of the coolest pieces of cosmetics that we've had in the game. But they did kind of make it a little bit cooler because I think one of the eyes blink now. But this is interesting. This person, he can do Tyranid missions on absolute solo, but he died 8 times in one gaming session with real teammates. In, I guess, lethal chaos missions? I really wanted the lethal helmet and started doing chaos missions. So, okay, so I think they're playing chaos missions on absolute. And they died 8 times in one gaming session with real teammates, playing Bulwark and Vanguard. It's not worth getting, don't care. Interesting. Alright, I think this person is also one of the players who, obviously, they think the game's a little bit too difficult for them at the moment, which is fine. I do think the 2 classes they are playing are good classes. They are great classes, especially against Chaos. Vanguard, I'm not 100% sure about Vanguard nowadays. I definitely need to try out some Vanguard because I have an itching to use the Melta, and I think the Vanguard's really good with the Melta at the moment. So that's probably how I would approach Chaos at the moment. I'm actually a decent Bulwark. Yeah, Bulwark with Invigorating Icon will be good. Interesting. They can beat Tyranid missions on Absolute, but they can't beat Chaos missions on Absolute. Effectively walling them off of getting the Survivor helmet. Huh. Now, Chaos missions on Absolute are definitely going to be a little bit difficult. It's probably the hardest content in the game. Even though people think, apparently people think Lethal is harder. I'm going to talk about that in a different video. I haven't played Lethal in quite a bit, so I will have to go back to Lethal just to kind of compare and contrast a bit. Died 8 times in one gaming session with real teammates. That's definitely higher than average. 8 times in one gaming session, that's definitely a couple hours. And hey, you know what? I was there. I died quite a bit to Reliquary for my Lethal run. I did manage to complete Reliquary on Absolute 2 times out of 3, something like that. It really didn't take me. I died once, and then I was able to get it first try on PC. It took me 2 tries on console. Basically, okay, that's not really like the whole truth, because on console I got it first try because I spawned right into the boss fight. So that like doesn't really count. So I don't know. I did end up dying on console because I was holding up my shield around a pillar and got hit by fire. I've told this story a bunch, and then I went on PC and I got it first try, which is nice. So Absolute Reliquary wasn't as hard as Lethal Reliquary for me, but like I said earlier in this video, Lethal Reliquary really did the number on, like, honestly, I died a lot of times, and dying that many times means you learn a lot. So I got a lot better after playing Lethal Reliquary a lot. So I don't know. Look, the helmet might not be worth getting for you, but you don't understand the amount of you don't understand the practice you are getting by playing Chaos missions that many times. So it's the helmet is already going to be easier to get the next time you queue in. I hope this person runs into some good teammates. But yeah, this is interesting. I do think, the game can be very difficult. I don't know if I would say if it's too hard at the moment. I don't know if I would say that. But with some of these stories, everyone hates Chaos, and Chaos has been nerfed here and there. Maybe Chaos needs another nerf, but for now, let's just, I think the game's difficulty is in a good spot, and I do think some of these players need to understand that trying is still practicing, and they are still getting better at the game, even though they're dying. So eventually, something's going to click with their build or with their strategy, and they're going to find something that makes it just a little bit easier, and that's all they're going to need, because they've already been playing against Chaos, and they've already been adjusting to, parrying and dodging and fighting Terminators and being patient about parrying Terminators. That's where that's where basically Terminators can catch you, is when you're not patient enough. You really have to understand the Terminator's hesitant moveset, and then you're able to parry them and take them out, which is nice. Sorcerers, save your crack grenades for. Just throw a crack grenade at a sorcerer and they're done. It's really easy to take out sorcerers that way. For Terminators, just throw all the damage you have at them from ranged, and then when they get into your vicinity for melee, make sure you are paying attention to their hesitant moveset, because they do delay their attacks, and then you should be good. The rockets obviously are going to be a problem, but the rockets are a tad bit easier to deal with now. If you're within the vicinity of melee for Terminators, they should be attacking you with melee. All right, I've talked a lot about this. I've talked a lot about this. Hopefully this helps some players who aren't completing Lethal and Absolute to understand that they are still getting better at the game, and sometimes it just takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of adjustment. Just look, really pay attention to what's killing you, and then just, look in the metaphorical gaming mirror for a bit, and just simply put, what could you have done better there? And then keep that in mind, because that's all you really need to get through these missions. A little bit of practice and a little bit of self-reflection can go a long way when it comes to tackling challenges. And I think difficulty is in a good spot, but I will say difficulty in Lethal and Absolute for Chaos missions is definitely a step above. You know, it's probably the hardest content in the game, and it should be. It should be difficult. So, I like the difficulty we have in the game. Chaos missions are definitely difficult. If you can't solo lethal, you're not bad. You're not bad at the game, and the game isn't too hard. But these are still some good experiences that we have here. I've talked about this a lot, so I have to cut myself up. I have to cut myself off, because otherwise I could sit here and talk about chaos missions all day, dude. Oh my god. Thanks for watching.